Hey guys, welcome to Bethel Online. My name is Jason. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're so glad you decided to make us a part of your weekend. No matter who you are, where you come from, we're so glad you're here. Our vision is to be a safe place for real people to encounter the real Jesus and experience real change. Our hope and our prayer is that no matter who you are or what you've been through, you know that you are loved and you are wanted here. We would love to get to know you better and help you connect with all that's going on. You can do this by going to our website at www.bethel.us or by downloading the Bethel app. You can find our app by searching Bethel Putco in your app store. Both online and in the app, you can fill out a digital connection card. It only takes a minute and it'll help us know how to serve you better. Another way you can connect today is through giving. Your generosity at Bethel directly impacts God's mission to radically change people's lives in Putnam County and beyond. Through the ministries of Bethel and the many local and regional organizations we support, people are able to see the grace of God and how much He loves them. You can always give on our website at bethel.us/give or in the Bethel app. Thank you for partnering with us and making a difference. Well, thanks again for tuning in online today. Know that you are wanted and welcome here, and you are loved. I hope you all have a great day.
Hey, good morning, Bethel Online. I'm so glad that you are joining us today. We're in the series called Choices. This is week number 5. So this week, I posted this question online. I said, if you could choose one word to describe who you want to be, what word would you choose? And we had some great answers online. One of them was intentional, which I think is a great word. And it is very true that if we're not intentional about something, we probably won't get it done. We won't do it. Another word was content, which is also a great word, being satisfied. Another one was authentic, which I also think is a fantastic word because people want the real thing. They don't want people to be fake. But in God's eyes, one word, I believe, stands above all others. And it's because when we get to heaven, God's not going to say, well done, my good and intentional servant. And He's not going to say, well done, my good and content servant. He's not going to say, well done, my good and authentic servant. But He is going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We're in the Choices series. This is week 6, I believe. And we're going to title this series, One Word That Will Change Your Life. The quality of our decisions, listen to this. The quality of our decisions or choices determines the quality of our lives. Okay? So if we know that, the quality of our decisions or our choices determines the quality of our life, we have something to talk about because so many times you and me, we are terrible at making decisions. Anybody else have this? Basically every single Sunday, service gets over. Hey, where do you want to go eat? I don't care. Where do you want to go eat? I don't care. All right, how about Mexican? Anything but Mexican. It's like we can't even make a choice about what we're doing after church, whether we're going to go home, whether we're going to go out, what restaurant are we going to go to. It's like we are so bad at making decisions. That's why we have said all series long that we are going to have to pre-decide before we are in the moment what choice we're going to make. We say when faced with whatever this situation is, I have pre-decided to take this action. It's kind of like me. When we get plugged in to go out of town somewhere or maybe on a vacation, we generally drive. So what do? You plug in where you're going to go in your GPS, right? And I'm faced with this situation of GPS is now on my phone. And I have already pre-decided that if it says it's going to take me 5.5 hours, I'm getting there in 5. Yes! That's what we do, right? I have pre-decided. That's not a good choice, by the way. But oftentimes, we don't pre-decide. And we wait until we are knee deep in a situation. to make a choice. And so many times, when we wait until that moment, when we're right in the midst of something, we make the wrong choice. That's why we have to pre-decide. When we're in the midst of something, we tend to respond out of our emotions, which is generally not a good thing. We don't want to respond out of our emotions. We want to respond out of the truth that is in Scripture, grounded in Jesus. So we have to pre-decide. Now look, in this series, there are 6 specific areas we're focusing on, and it will determine who we are going to be. We've already said that I am ready, I am consistent, I am devoted. Last week we talked about I am generous. This week we're going to talk about I am faithful. And then next week is I am a finisher. These are the 6 specific areas that we are focusing in on, saying we are going to pre-decide that I am ready, I'm consistent, I'm devoted, I'm generous, I'm faithful, and I am a finisher. And the reason why we are pre-deciding to be faithful is because we will never accidentally, consistently be faithful. Because think about it. The trajectory of our lives is always towards easy. Would you agree with me? That's what we look at, is towards easy or convenient. So being faithful is rarely easy. It's often hard. And it comes with a cost. But it's always worth it. Did you hear me? So we have to pre-decide to be faithful. Because it comes with a cost. And when you're in the midst of something, when something is going on, we tend to look for the easy way out. But being faithful is so many times such a hard decision. So we pre-decide that the cost is worth it. And so we are going to remain faithful. Look at Habakkuk 2, verse 4. It says, "Look at the proud. They trust in themselves and their lives are crooked. They trust in their own wisdom. They trust in their own goodness. They trust in their own abilities. They trust in their own bank account. They trust in themselves and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God." Now, unfortunately, way too many times in my life, I've been the beginning of that verse. I've been the proud. I've thought, man, I got this. I can do this on my own. This isn't going to be that hard. I'll decide later and figure it out. And so many times pride will work its way in. And too many times I've been the beginning of that verse and not the end. And I want to be the righteous that lives by their faithfulness to God. So what does it mean to be faithful? Let's start right there. Well, when we hear faithful, we tend to probably think in a marriage situation, I'm going to be faithful to my spouse. Or in a business situation, I'm going to be faithful with my employer or faithful with my employees, or we're going to pay our taxes right and on time. We're going to be faithful. That's what we see. But when Jesus talks about faithfulness, there's a couple of different categories that he speaks of. We're going to look at both those today. Number one, he speaks of how we treat people. In faithfulness, how do we treat people when we encounter them? And number two, how do we respond to God? So going off of these 2 categories, we're going to pre-decide 2 things today. Are you ready? Here we go. Number one, we're going to pre-decide that every interaction is an opportunity to add value. That means everywhere you go, every person you meet, every interaction you have, there is a chance in faithfulness to add value to that situation. We won't add value by chance, by the way. It just doesn't happen that way. We are way too focused on ourselves, right? Think about it. Think about when you're in a picture. Who do you see first? Do you generally see yourself? I kind of do. Like, where am I at? Do I look okay? Am I blinking? Is my finger up my nose? Is this a good picture? Is this a bad picture? Look on Facebook. It is a selfie world. We are into ourselves. And so we won't add value by chance because we're way too focused on ourselves. And as a Christ follower, it is our duty, it is our faithfulness in God to respond to situations and people to add value. Paul says it like this in Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helping for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. You know what I like about this, just out the gate? What I like about this is, so you add value to the situation. You add value to people and how you treat them and how you respond to them. And it's helpful for building others up. But look, so that it may benefit those who listen. It's not even necessarily the person you're talking to. Because if you're in a crowd or there's people around you in a restaurant or there's people around you in a business or that situation, they're also going to be hearing how you talk to people, how you talk to that individual, how you build them up, how you add value. So it's reaching beyond even necessarily that person that you're talking to. Like when you walk into a room, is the life sucked out of it? Because people are thinking, oh no, here they come. I know they got something to say. I know they got some gossip. Man, this person can really tear some people down. Or do you make the climate of that room better? Do I make the climate of that room better? Are people happy to see me because I've chosen faithfulness to God and I choose to add value and not tear people down? Are you an encourager? Do you add value? I want you to think. Think about how Jesus interacted with people. When the disciples were worried, did Jesus just say, boy, you better be. Man, this is a load of crap right here. This is going to hell in a handbasket. No. What did he say? He said, eat and drink. I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to worry about what you're going to eat. You don't have to worry about what you're going to drink. Look at Matthew 6. It says it like this. So don't worry about these things saying, what will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers. But your heavenly Father already knows your needs. So he doesn't tell them, good luck. No. He tells them, listen, I've got this. And I've got you. And it's going to be okay. This is how Jesus responds. Hey, what about the woman who was caught in adultery? You know, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, they walked her out in the middle of this open area. They were wanting to kill her because she had sinned. She had adultery in her past. And they were going to throw stones at her and kill her. And Jesus shows up and they're asking him, dude, what do you do? What do we do? What do we do? Who throws the stone? We certainly are going to stone her, right? And Jesus stops and he draws a line or draws something in the sand. I'm not sure what it was. But then he says this to them. He doesn't say, yep, that's what you should do. She's caught in sin. She's caught in adultery. Let's all just heap a bunch of stones at her and kill her. No. He says, let the one who has no sin, let the person who has not sinned throw the first stone. Look at it here in John 8. When the accusers heard this, when the Pharisees heard this, when the teachers of the law heard this, when the townspeople that were there heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. And then look what Jesus says. He stood up again and he said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. He completely changed the climate. He spoke life into this woman. Instead of heaping shame and heaping condemnation like so many times we can do. No. He saw her as redeemable. And that's how we should see people. What about when Peter, he denied Christ 3 times. And he doesn't say, you're out, dude. 3 strikes, you're out, man. Move on. I want nothing to do with you. There's no hope for you. You are not redeemable. That's not what he says. He says, do you love me? Peter, do you still love me? Peter says yes. And he says, then feed my sheep. Show my love. Reach out for those in need. And he forgave gracefully. Look, every single interaction is an opportunity to add value and to speak life. Every conversation is an opportunity to add value and to speak life. A single word of encouragement can radically change someone's life and radically change their trajectory, and that is faithfulness to God. Number 2, every prompting is an opportunity to obey God. Look, Paul says this in Acts 20, but there is another urgency before me. He just got done having this big party because of things that had happened before. They were on a high, and he realized, but there is an urgency before me. I feel compelled to go to Jerusalem. But look at this next line. This is great. I'm completely in the dark about what will happen when I get there. It's like Paul saying, listen, I can't explain it. I don't understand it. I don't know the details. But I know I'm being drawn. I know I'm being compelled. I know this is a nudge. I know I'm supposed to do that. I've pre-decided that I'm going to be faithful, that I'm going to obey. And so even though he's completely in the dark, he says, I do know that it won't be any picnic. It's not going to be easy. For the Holy Spirit has let me know repeatedly and clearly that there are hard times and imprisonment ahead. But that matters little. Wow. I want to be there. I want to be able to say that. That even if I feel this nudge and I have no idea what's going to happen and I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but I've already kind of been warned ahead of time that it may not be a great thing for me, it matters little because of my faithfulness and my obedience to Christ. He says, what matters most to me is to finish what God started. So when you follow Jesus, he will nudge you. He will prompt you. He will give you opportunities. He will put you in situations to speak up for him in a graceful way. And he will compel you to move forward. And being faithful is responding even when you don't know the outcome. In Hebrews 11, we're going to run through these pretty quick. But it is people that have been put in the same situation as Paul. They've felt the nudge. They've been compelled. They know God is in it, but they don't know anything else. They don't know the details. How are they going to respond? Are they going to back up and say, nah, nope, can't do it? Or are they going to step out in faithfulness and obedience to God for the nudge that he's given them? Check this out. These are some great situations. We're not going in depth. We're going to run through them. Here we go in Hebrews 11:4. It was by faith that Abel brought a more accountable or acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel is long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. We're still talking about him. Not because he was a great guy, but because he stepped out in faith, not knowing. Hebrews 11:8. It was by faith that Abraham obeyed God. Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. That's crazy, right? But he was compelled, he was nudged, and he wanted to be obedient. So he stepped out. And by the way, when he got there, he still had to live as a foreigner. And he was hanging out in tents and out in the wilderness. But by faith he went because God said to go. It was by faith that people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days and the walls came crashing down. You probably know this story. I mean, come on. You're going into battle. You think you're going to have a lot of weapons, but no, you're a marching band. And they marched around the walls of Jericho 7 days. And they did it out of faith because God had compelled them to do that. Hebrews 11:17. It was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. Man, I don't know if you know this story. I can't even imagine. Abraham, who had received God's promises, was ready to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. God told him to go to the top of a mountain and lay your son down as a sacrifice. I would love to sit here and say, yeah, I'd do it. I'd take my only son, if God told me, and lay him down as a sacrifice for God to take him. But you know what? If I'm honest, I'd have a lot of questions. And if I went and did it, I would go kicking and screaming. But I want to have the faith that Abraham had. I want to have his faith in Christ and his obedience to God to do whatever God tells me to do. Hebrews 11:7, this is the last one. It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about things that had never happened before. A boat made no sense. Can you imagine what the people around him were saying? What names they were calling him? I bet there weren't many that were speaking life and adding value to Noah. But he was compelled by God. And he followed in faith and obedience to what he had been told to do. Right after I got saved, right after I gave my life to Christ, we were living in a town called DuQuoin. It's in southern Illinois. And I just felt this nudge to go talk to the football coach because there was a speaker coming to our town who I know was really great at speaking to that generation, speaking to the youth of the day. And I desperately wanted to see other people follow Christ in obedience. And so I told some friends of mine, hey, I'm going to go to the football coach and ask him if he can let the kids out of practice about 30 minutes early so they can get to this service. And everybody that I encountered, even believers, looked at me and said, you have absolutely lost your mind. There's no way it's going to happen. And the reason they said that is because, like many small towns, football is huge. Like, this is a 2A school, a town of 6,000 people. And we always joke that if you wanted to rob somebody, do it on Friday night because everybody's at the football game. Like, football was life for people in this town. It was huge. And so they looked at me and said, you're nuts, dude. You've lost your mind. There is no way the coach is going to do that. And I said, I don't know. I just feel like I'm supposed to do it. So I asked him for a meeting. He said, okay. And I came in and I sat down across his desk and I said, hey, coach, here's the deal. Like, I recently gave my life to Christ and there's a speaker coming to town. I set the whole table and asked him if they could get out early. And he paused. And he looked across his desk and I was waiting for the, dude, you're crazy, no way. And instead, he said, for those that are going to go, I'll make it happen. And I was blown away. I'm like, I didn't even know what to say. I think I said thank you. And I walked out. And by the way, as I'm walking out, I'm walking by the volleyball coach for the girls. And I just gave him the same story really quick in the hallway. And he said, sure, I'll let him out. And I went back and I told my friends. And there may have been some pride in this. And me going, that's right. Look what I did. I hope not, but there probably was. Because I told you before, I can have a pride issue sometimes. But I went back and I told them, hey, this is what the coaches said. They're like, no way. And all I can say is that I tried to act in obedience. And let me tell you this. I don't always get this right. As a matter of fact, I may get it wrong more than I get it right. But I got it right this time. And man, God showed up. I just tried to act out in faithfulness and obedience, and God made it happen. And I know some of those students gave their life to Christ that night. And it's only a God thing and only by His doing. Obedience is our responsibility, but the outcome is God's. And I truly believe that this next week, God's going to put someone or something on your heart. And I really hope that you and I will pre-decide now to follow the prompting, to follow the nudge, and to reach out. And maybe it's a phone call to someone, just saying, man, I miss you and I really love you. Maybe it's a text if you're a texter. Maybe it's an email if that's what you do. Maybe you stop by their business and say, hey, I see you and you're doing a great thing. And I'm excited and I'm proud that you are in our community with your business. Maybe you ask someone to lunch. I don't know what it is. But the obedience part of this is our responsibility. The outcome we leave up to God. God's going to do what he's going to do with it. So out of our faithfulness and obedience, let's pre-decide now that we're going to follow the prompting this next week. I love you guys. Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Are you ready to take your next step? We would love to hear from you. You can send an email to hello@bethel.us. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can let us know in the Bethel app. And speaking of the Bethel app, take a moment, if you haven't already, to go to your app store and search Bethel Putco to download our app. There's all kinds of great resources in the app. You can listen to messages, you can view the messages for Sunday morning, and you can also fill out a digital Connect card. You can do that today and each week to let us know that you're tuning in. You can also find some great information about our Bethel Kids Ministry and our Be the One student ministries. Also in the app, you can give. It's one of 3 ways you can give: with online giving at bethel.us/give, in our app, Bethel Putco, or through text. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a great day and know that you are loved.